Hey, welcome to the third video in this series. This time we're going to concentrate on adding details to the skin of our character. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Alrighty, so here is where we left off from the second video in the series. I actually went ahead and tweaked things a little bit just because I think I was going a little bit too extreme in terms of the stylization of the character. So this is what I ended up with. Let me just show you a before and after so that you have a rough idea of the changes. So this is what we ended up with in the previous video. This is the tweaked version of the primary shapes of the head within ZBrush, and this is what I refined. So I just went ahead and tweaked things so that it's still stylized in a way, but a bit more natural, more humanoid, right? So this is what we currently have in this project. So the idea of this video is that I'm going to show you how easy it is as well to add details, all the pores and tiny wrinkles of the head. We're not going to jump into the wrinkles that are generated dynamically as you change expressions. So we're just going to concentrate on creating kind of like the bumps and the pores and tiny wrinkles or memory kind of like wrinkles of the face in a neutral pose. So these are not necessarily dynamic wrinkles. So, and it is important to make that distinction because we need to use neutral faces as references to create this kind of like pores and details. So let me just show you here as well in our reference board. So most of the faces that I have here, they have an expression one way or another. This one is kind of like, maybe this is a bit too young in terms of wrinkles. Maybe this one right here. So you see, this is a more neutral face. I'm talking about Joaquin Phoenix, this one. It has a neutral face, kind of, and it has a few wrinkles that we can identify. So here at the top, some here at the bottom. So these are the type of things that we're going to concentrate on in this particular video, just creating the high frequency details of the face before we jump into the expression. Now, before we jump into ZBrush and detail the face of a character, I just want to show you a resource that I think it is absolutely fantastic for this type of high frequency details and tiny pores and all of that. It is from Daniel Beauchamp. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is basically danielbeauchamp.com, and these are incredibly high resolution images that you can use as a reference, especially to understand kind of like the direction of the pores and the very high frequency details of the skin. And let's go ahead and find maybe this one right here. Marcus and Joe. These two are pretty good. Just wait until they load. There we go. So just wait until it loads and it has a super high resolution. So we can get really, really close. It's just loading up, but you will be able to see, how detailed this photograph is. And this is very important, I think, just to study this type of high frequency details to see, like, even though they might look just like bumps or, pores and indentations, there is some kind of directionality, as you can see here. And this area right here, they have like, the pores are being stretched out and it's generating some tiny wrinkles. So, it's really cool to study the, the way that the skin sort of changes in terms of the material, of the properties of the material here around the lips. So yeah, this is a really awesome reference or resource that you can use to study this type of wrinkles. Let's not get that close. So yeah, this is just an extra, reference that you can use to study the high frequency lines and pores of the human face. You see, it's really, really interesting, but I'll leave it up to you. Just thought it's a very cool reference that you can use. All right, so going back to the actual tutorial, we have already covered the setup of the project. We have tweaked the base mesh of the character or the face of the character, and now we're going to concentrate on adding those details. And this is the basic workflow that you will follow with any character in ZBrush, right? You start with a base mesh, you start subdividing to adjust the primary, secondary shapes, then tertiary shapes, and then eventually you get to details. So that's kind of like what I'm doing at the moment. So we have already edited the base mesh and the secondary shapes. Now it is time to add the details. And then once we have our character with our primary shapes right, the secondary shapes, we have the tertiary shapes, and we have the details on our character, then we can move on to the expressions and the wrinkles or the dynamic wrinkles, right? So what I'm going to do now is click on plugins, and I'm going to click on face tools and click on face tools. All right, I'm going to send the base model only. And again, just like I showed you in the previous video, I'm going to create a new one. You can go ahead and relink it to the previous one if you have a project already open in ZBrush. But I'm just going to create a new one just to keep it simple. And in the subdivision level, I'm going to click on 7. So that way we have lots more resolution. And I'm going to make sure that the normal details is ticked on. So again, all the default settings, I only change this to level 7 to get a 4K texture resolution. Now the rest is the same. I'm going to go ahead and click on Go Z and wait until Character Creator 4 or the ZBrush Face Tools plugin set up the entire project with the high res and all of that inside ZBrush. All right, so now we have our character with all the high frequency details in ZBrush. Keep in mind that we have 7 subdivision levels, so we have plenty of resolution right now. Let me just collapse this for a second just to show you. Currently, just this subtool, the face or the head, it has 17 million polygons. So it's still, pretty good and pretty decent to work on, but it is quite a few polygons, right? So if it takes a while, just don't worry. It's just because there's a lot of polygons, a lot of points happening. All right. So what I'm going to do is turn off my range, because now we're going to concentrate on the details. And you see that we have the details layer by default. When you send it as a new project, you send it and then we have all the details. So the first thing that I want to do is concentrate a little bit on the, adding some of the main lines, because at the moment, this level of high frequency details is good, and this is what comes from CC4, but there's a few areas that need to be sharpened up. So that's going to be my main focus in this first part of this video. So in terms of the steps to actually edit the mesh, again, it's pretty simple. Remember, the detailing layer is just a layer within ZBrush. So what I need to do is go to the high subdivision level, which by default I am in 7, and I'm going to go to the layers and open that up. And I'm going to click on record. So I'm going to click on that one. And now I'm recording in this layer. So I'm actually editing the base layer that has all these details, right? So let's collapse this one now. And now that we have the layer recording, we can actually go into lowest subdivision level, maybe level 6 or 5, just so we can control things a little bit better. And I'm going to use the damp standard brush. I'm also going to enable symmetry. Whoops, let's go ahead and switch to C-Sub. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharpening up some lines. So subdivision level 5 should be okay. You can also start smoothing things out if you want to a little bit. So again, just think about what are the lines that in a neutral pose are kind of like the ones that you're going to create. Try not to go too crazy with this unless you're doing a character that is pretty old, that will have this type of memory folds or memory wrinkles. I'm just going to sharpen up those kind of like the eyelids, bottom of the eyelids, not too much. I wouldn't say that these are like details or like pores. This is just a bit of a refinement of the primary shapes. All right. And obviously to make it a bit more realistic, we can turn off symmetry and start adjusting this asymmetrically. Again, I'm not going to go too crazy with these lines, these folds. I just want to make sure that I address whatever lines are more visible in a neutral pose. And for that, it's always good to collect references that are also in a neutral pose and see which ones are the most prominent ones. So I'm going to take advantage of the pores and the things that are already part of the mesh, or of the high frequency details that came from CC4. So I'm just going to exaggerate those lines a tiny bit. Let's do the same thing here for the other eye. All right. So, pretty simple stuff. Maybe exaggerate these lines a little bit. And you don't have to, by the way, you don't have to have this high frequency detail and follow it along based on the scan data. If you want to do something that is totally different from what came from Character Creator 4, you can just go to, let's go to subdivision level 7. Let's bring in a brush that comes with ZBrush. I don't know if it's already loaded by default. Let's press B and S for smooth. I'm going to look for smooth stronger. Yeah, it's not loaded. Here it is. So the smooth stronger. If you don't have it, or if you don't see it in ZBrush, you can just load it up from the Lightbox. Go to Lightbox, brush, smooth brushes, and it should be here. So smooth stronger, just double click on that and it will be loaded. And that brush allows you to smooth out all of these details. So I'm going to press X just to have symmetry. And you'll see I'm just kind of like removing those details altogether. So just flattening those details. Again, this is an optional thing. You don't have to do it. I'm just going to show you both or I tried to show you both worlds, basically, kind of like using the normal map that comes with the scan data from CC4, which is, you know, pretty realistic, and it gives you all those nice bumps and those areas. But if you want something that looks smoother, or you want to just create your own pores and your own set of details, that's also a possibility. All I'm doing here is just to, you know, smooth those. If you want to get something that it looks even smoother than that, you can go to subdivision level 6 or even 5, and that way this smooth brush, the stronger smooth brush, is going to give you a much better, much obvious result, as you can see here. Yeah, just make sure that when you go back to subdivision level 7, you do another pass of cleaning up or smoothing, right? Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because you can totally go ahead and create your own details, or you know, smooth some of the details that come with CC4, but then create your own in a different way. And for that, I'm going to use a custom set of brushes, or a pack of brushes that I created for this purpose, specifically of creating skin details. And I'm going to leave a link to those brushes pack in the description of this video. But just so that you know which ones I'm going to be using, I'm going to go to my brushes. So I have a couple of packs here. So I have the skin pack that comes with all of these brushes, and I also have the creature skin pack. I just want to show you both because you might want to go for a human character, or you might also want to go for an alien creature type of humanoid character. So you can totally do that with this type of brushes. So just I'm going to go for a humanoid character, but just so you can see how easy this is, I'm going to select something like this brush, and I'm going to add some larger bumps in here, right? So I'm just adding what could be some kind of bump of I don't know what this could be, like some kind of alien. But that's the idea with these brushes, just to speed up the workflow. This one is pretty cool. You just add some sort of like scales, so we can make like a reptilian type of creature. But the difference between these brushes and, you know, some alphas that you might find online is that you can sort of guide or give this directionality. You can sort of guide the flow of this. And obviously this is not great, but I just want to show you that you can totally go ahead and do that. Use these brushes to generate something completely different. Just one more, just to show you the patterns that you can create. This is the entire point of this video, is just to generate those high frequency details. Whether you go for a creature, or, you know, or a more human or realistic human, you can totally do that at this point. Just generate those details. So let's go ahead and undo that and open up the other brushes, the skin brushes, and I'm going to create the base. So in this pack, I have sort of created this this workflow with 1, 2, 3, and 4 to generate the base skin. So I'm going to start with number 1, and let's go ahead and jump into subdivision level 6, so this is a little bit faster. And this is going to just generate, hopefully you can see, it's a very subtle pattern, but I'm just going to go into kind of like circular motions to start adding the base, right? And this is going to create that sort of like generic pass or generic base of the face. Now these brushes, just so that you know, it is important. It is also covered in the tutorials that I have about these brushes. But what is important is that these brushes are meant to be creating tileable textures. So if you go to the brush palette, you'll see that the wrap mode is set to 1. Make sure that you set this to 0. So whatever brush that you use from the skin pack, make sure that you go and set it to 0 if you want to just add it. Otherwise, it's going to create, you know, details all over the place, as you can see here, and it becomes a little bit awkward. So let me just undo that. There we go. So now I'm just going to concentrate on one area, and you see it's not going to add those details everywhere in the model. The reason I left that wrap mode on is because you can use these brushes to create custom alphas that are tileable, and that's the wrap mode that you need for that sort of thing. All right, so I'm going to concentrate on maybe just a region of the face, and then I'll show you the end result later, so that you don't have to sit here and go through the entire process of detailing a face. So this is the step 1. It just gives you the initial stage. Let's go ahead and open up the second one. That's going to give you some nice bumpy surface. Again, remember, you'll see as I do this, it is adding that everywhere. So what I want to do is go to brush, set this wrap mode to 0. Sometimes I forget, but it's all right. And again, the idea with this 1, 2, 3 sort of workflow is to apply this in sort of like circular motions. I'm just changing the brush size because these bumps are a little bit too big. Don't worry, this is going to look a lot better once we go to the 4th step. But this is just to, again, generate a base that we can work on. right? Let's go ahead and do the third one. And by the way, you don't have to use this at all. This is purely a simple way of getting to this point quickly. Let's go ahead and set this to 0 as well. So this is adding like tiny bumps. But instead of, if you don't want to use these brushes, you can do the same thing with the standard brush and just, I'll show you in just a second. But this is the main thing, right? If you don't want to use these brushes, you can use the brush, the standard brush, so BST, and you can change the stroke to something like spray and change the alpha. Let's go for alpha 08, and you can do the same thing, right? Obviously changing a little bit of the intensity as well. So you can do very similar things with the brushes that come with ZBrush. It's just that these brushes that I set up, again, they're just to speed up the process a little bit more. So we have 1, 2, 3 in terms of the steps. I'm going to go to the fourth one. The fourth one is going to load up a custom smooth brush. So I'm going to double click on that. And if I press the Shift key, you see now I have that in here. And that's the one that also, make sure that wrap is to 0. This is the one that allows me to sort of integrate all of these details really nicely. And this brush is based on the smooth peaks in ZBrush. So I'm just going to press, variate the pressure as well. So pressing harder or softer in some areas. And you see what this brush is doing is kind of like unifying those bumps, those crevices, and essentially the step 1, 2, and 3 into a more cohesive sort of like skin pattern, right? And I think I went a little bit too big with the bumps and the details, but hopefully you get the idea. This is kind of like the way of doing it manually. I personally enjoy it, but if you don't want to do it, if you just want to get to the expressions and skip all this process, by all means, just use the normal map that comes with CC4. Now I'm going to go ahead and open a couple more just to cover some of these brushes. Again, just let me reiterate, you don't have to use these brushes at all. You can use any brush that you want to detail your sculpt in ZBrush. The only reason I'm showing you this is because it just speeds up this process a little bit more for me. So for instance, let's go ahead and take this this one right here for the eyelids. And let's go closer here. Oops. Again, same thing. Make sure that the brush is set to 0 here in the curve. Otherwise, you'll add it everywhere. Again, that is by design because these brushes, I use them to create tileable textures. But when you get to this point, it's probably better to turn it off. I'm gonna go into solo mode. Just try to add a little bit of that pattern in there. All right, so they're like obviously brushes for every specific area of the face. And I'm rushing these a little bit, to be honest. You can spend a bit more time doing this. I'm gonna do this one right here, the expression pores, because this one is important to get right. So in this area right here, I'm gonna try to go in this sort of direction that I had before. And that's the reason I wanna show you this, or I wanted to show you the references in here. So Marcus is a pretty good one for that. Let's go ahead and zoom back a bit. So this is what I'm trying to achieve with that brush. It's not just adding the bumps, it's also getting that sort of directionality here in this fold, or this, the skin fold, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here. And that's why it's really good to have references. And obviously it looks a lot better when you have established that base, that sort of like generic skin base, and then smooth that out to blend them together. And in the same way, we can go ahead and maybe add some pores for the nose. So I'm gonna double click on that one. And also maybe at this point, let's add some pores around here. Oops, again, keep forgetting. It's important to remember, set these brushes to 0 if you use them. All right, so I'm just adding some pores around the nose area. At this point that I'm getting to the center part of the head, I'm gonna turn off symmetry so we get something a bit more realistic. All right, so we have some pores. Let's go ahead and smooth that out. I'm still smoothing everything with the Skin Base 04, and this is a general good smoothing brush for everything to do with details here. All right, so again, I'm just concentrated on an area. I'm not gonna do the entire face, but this is basically the workflow. Let's go ahead and do something else like this wrinkle push out 2. I'm gonna click on that one. This one is really cool because it allows you to create these very sharp crevices and smaller wrinkles, and you can exaggerate things like this one right here and start adding a much more interesting and realistic sort of texture. But you see, this is a process that it is ultimately very, very easy to do. It's very simple once once you know the steps, or once you know the brushes that you can use. It is very, very simple. The main thing is that it takes time, and you have to be patient about it. Again, if you want to do it, by all means, this is kind of like what I enjoy doing anyway. I can just bring in these brushes and spend a lot of time just refining these bit by bit. Let's say something here around the eyes. Bring in some references and see how like this area, this tiny sort of thin part of the skin, sort of like creates these pulling lines towards the nostril, towards the bridge of the nose. So all of these things are really good to just always have a reference next to you. But again, this is something that I really enjoy. It's a process that I like. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can use what comes with CC4. But anyway, I'm going to show you the final process in just a bit. I'm going to use another one for the lips just to show you something else. So we have this lip detailer, and this one is pretty cool as well. Just allows you to create these shapes around the lips very easily. All right. Again, this is something that I've done very, very quickly, but as you can see, you can totally generate these details in any way you want to. I'm going to use more of a default brush, like the damp standard brush, to really sharpen some of these lines. And again, I'm doing this very, very quickly, but I just want to show you how all of this that I'm doing is translated, or will be translated, as a high fidelity normal map into CC4 once we send it. So I'm just going to sharpen these ones up. And you will clearly see the difference on the areas that I didn't work on and the ones that have these bits. I also like to do some manual asymmetrical details, let's say some acne or scars from acne, for example, things like that. Maybe with the standard brush, I'm going to press BST and go to brush, and I'm going to reset all my brushes because I've been, tweaking them too much. So let's do that. So with this one, I'm just going to add some tiny bumps. And yeah, that sort of creates a more customized or bespoke texture details. But, don't go too crazy with that one. I'm actually going to enhance this tiny bump that comes with CC4, so just so you can see it later on. All right, so again, this is something that it is very tedious to watch, I would say. It is a very repetitive action, but if you take the time and study the reference that you collected, and you actually think about where the different pores and the different type of wrinkles are placed, you get something that looks pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is just show you the process of how you can send this back to CC4, and then I'm going to show you the end result of what I created so that you have a better idea. So it is actually very, very simple. All we have to do is, again, go to update to CC4 or character creator. Click on that. Again, wait until this whole process or the plugin goes through the process of analyzing what we've changed until we get the pop-up window and we can tell ZBrush what we actually want to send to CC4. There we go. So this is what we had in the previous video. So we just sent the base mesh. This time, I only want to change the base normals or the details. So let's go ahead and click on base mesh. We don't want to send any of that. We actually want to send the details and the normals, right? Or basically want to send the details and it will automatically convert the details into a normal map. So that's what we want. You can also choose this to be a map of 4K if you want to. I think 2K is totally fine. But again, if you want to, you can just set this to 4K. And that's it. Let's click on update character creator. And if you get this pop-up, is because we don't have a subdivision level for the teeth. So we're actually going to get this pop-up for the upper teeth, the bottom teeth, and the tongue as well. So let's click OK. There is the lower teeth, and here's the tongue. That's it. So that's totally fine. If you don't want to see that pop-up, if you get scared about those pop-ups, you can just add a subdivision level to the teeth and the tongue. And the reason, by the way, the reason we get these pop-ups is because we left the tick boxes enabled and we don't have subdivision levels. All right, so now we have our character. Let's go ahead and do a screenshot. And that way we can sort of compare what we did in ZBrush. So let's paste it there. I'm going to do a crop. Hopefully you can see the difference I'm going to get closer so that you can see more of the changes that I've done. All right, so the left-hand side is the one that we had before, and these are the details that we did in ZBrush. So we clearly see a big difference around here, and the lips and the pores around here, and obviously the eyelids as well. So it is very nicely translated from what we did in ZBrush into the normal map. Again, this also has other material properties like translucency and all of that, so it's not going to be as strong, but it is there, right? Very, very simple stuff. And now we have all the pore details that we added in ZBrush. The resolution is 2K. Again, if you want to set it to 4K, you can totally do so. But all the pores and all the details that we created are in there in the form of a normal map. So that is pretty cool. All right, so that is basically the workflow. As you can see, it's very simple. And as a quick recap, it's very simple process. You can go to plugins, ZBrush Face Tools, send it to ZBrush, and in ZBrush, you can just go ahead and do the edits that you want to the mesh. One of the cool things about this process as well is that you can send it back to CC4 and double check and say, okay, this is kind of like cool. It's kind of working, but maybe I want something a bit more pronounced in this area. So the one that I did in ZBrush is not very obvious around here. So I might want to do something more extreme. So you don't have to send back and forth everything. You can just go back to ZBrush, go to the project that you're working on. And I'm going to really exaggerate this one just to show you. So BDS to go to Damp Standard Brush. Again, forgot to go to layers, record on that layer, and I'm just gonna exaggerate this on one side, so just so you can see how easy this this whole workflow is. Maybe the other side as well, just so that it doesn't look as weird. Again, this is just a quick test to show you. All right, so you go ahead and say in CC4, you know what, this is not working. I wanna tweak it a little bit more. You go back to ZBrush. Again, you'll have to do the same thing, but it's just a matter of updating. You don't have to, send it back and forth. You can just keep sending things from ZBrush to CC4 every time that you do an update. So I'm going to click on Update CC4. Again, it's going to go through the entire process. And here we have the pop-up. And this time, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to send the details or convert the details to a new normal map. I'm going to send it as a 4K, actually, so we can check the difference. And this time I'm not gonna send the teeth, the eyes, or the tongue. This is the reason why we got those pop-ups before, because we didn't have any subdivision levels. So I'm just gonna send the head and click on update. And there we go, it's going through the process, and as you can see, it's not having any issue with the pop-ups. All right, successfully exported. Let's go to CC4. And there we have it. So we now have our nice sort of like crevice in there. So it is a pretty cool process. You don't have to go back and forth. I mean, you can if you want to, but it is just easier to sort of like send it to CC4, check that everything is working. You might say, you know what, this is a little bit too extreme. Go back to ZBrush, smooth it out, and you're good to go. So to wrap up this video, as you can see, it is a very simple process, just a repetitive action of adding details, and you can use custom brushes or the ones that come with ZBrush. But like I said, to wrap up this video, I want to show you the end result. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the project that has all the kind of like the proper sculpting that I did. So let me just load this up as a new step. And you'll get this pop-up if you're replacing an entire project. I'm gonna replace everything. So it is basically the same character. I just spent a little bit more time. Like I said, very repetitive action, but I spent more time tweaking the details. And there we go. So you see we have a few more details in the normal. I think this is at 4K as well. So I just spent more time kind of like defining these lines. This crevice. So it just makes it a little bit more of a weathered face and a bit older, but that's pretty much it. That is all the details into the normal map as well. And let me just go ahead and switch back to ZBrush. I have also loaded the final result of sculpting those details in there, so you can compare. There we go. So this is what I came up with. This is the one we were playing around with. You see, it's slightly different. I spent a bit more time adding more of the secondary shapes. Again, it's just about patience and focusing on the references and try to replicate certain parts of the reference. So here we go. So this is the face, and I created the details of this face and all of that using the custom brushes that I show you. But as you can see, it's mostly those tiny wrinkles around the bottom part of the mouth area, the lips, all these tiny wrinkles that are formed here in the connection of the nostrils and all of that good stuff. And that is coming through really nicely here in the normal map. So you have all of those details coming through. But yeah, that is pretty much it. So that concludes this third video in the series. And in the next video, we're going to concentrate on creating the textures using Polypaint. Again, I'm going to show you how fantastic this workflow between CC4 and ZBrush is, so that you can leverage the potential that you have in ZBrush and, you know, visualize all the details and every change that you make within ZBrush in CC4 in your character that is fully rigged, and, you know, create these great expressions and all those wrinkles. So I'm going to leave this video here, and I'll see you in the next one.